Hey cinephiles, on February 22nd, 2022, a camera and 3 memory cards were discovered in the Mojave Desert. The raw footage on those cards revealed a mind-bending voyage of unrelenting terror into a world of darkness that no human was ever meant to see.
What's happening? What is
This is the setup for The Outwaters, a new found footage horror film that has been generating some of the most buzz this subgenre has seen since the Blair Witch Project. Can it possibly live up to the hype as one of the greatest, if not scariest, found footage films ever made? Or does this film, like its tagline, die in the dark? It's time to shed some light on The Outwaters. I first learned about The Outwaters from the incredibly effective and praise-filled teaser trailer that played in front of the theatrical release of Terrifier 2. The film premiered at the New Jersey Film Festival in February of 2022, before gaining more traction at horror-themed festivals here in the States and across the pond, where the word of mouth was foaming with accolades. This route has proven to be a winning marketing strategy. In recent months, we've seen films like Barbarian and Skinamarink going viral ahead of their official release, practically coming out of the oven with baked-in cult status. As a horror hound with a penchant for found footage, this quickly became one of my most anticipated films of 2023. While it's touted as the feature-length directorial debut of Robbie Banfitch, he made an hour-long sci-fi horror flick 15 years ago called White Light as his art school thesis film. I watched it last year as part of my 31 days of horror in preparation for The Outwaters. It's an operative mood piece that signals a promising filmmaker, and Banfitch is already making good on that promise.
911, what are you reporting?
The Outwaters begins with a 911 call played over pictures of 4 friends who were last seen on August 8th, 2017. We're then presented with the footage of the 3 memory cards, marked as evidence by the Mojave County Police Department, and presented in their raw video and sound in chronological order. From the onset, The Outwaters capitalizes on the found footage format. For anyone who has seen their fair share of what the subgenre has to offer, the formula is familiar. As with most of its predecessors, The Outwaters can readily be split into 2 halves. First, the slow burn, which sees a compilation of footage that works to introduce us to the main characters and establish their relationships, interspersed with artsy B-roll and a sense of foreboding as it follows 4 friends who set off into the desert to shoot a music video. Second, the scorched earth, when all hell inevitably breaks loose. The latter comes sooner than you might think, and once it arrives, it's there to stay until the film's blistering final image. After crossing the point of no return, The Outwaters becomes a relentless and unforgiving ride of metaphysical proportions. In concept, I am totally on board for such an assault on and of the senses. However, in execution, I experienced my fair share of disconnect. While the performances in and of themselves are commendable, the characters eventually leave their logic outside the tent. They show a lack of action or reaction to natural phenomena as it turns supernatural. Not to mention the crucial query that seems to eternally plague many a found footage film: why in the world would anybody in this situation keep filming?
Stop. No, seriously, tell him. Tell him to stop. He's been filming for weeks.
The first half of The Outwaters is one of the most beautifully shot found footage films I have ever encountered, which, let's face it, is not something these films are particularly known for. In fact, many seem purposefully inept in an effort to strike some semblance of realism. The Outwaters is striking in this regard. I thought this is what it would be like if Terrence Malick made a found footage film. That said, I immediately took back that description once natural light was eliminated from the equation and I was thrown into a shaky abyss of body and cosmic horror, at which point the film seemed to become something of a testing video for narrow beam flashlights.
The woods down at the end of the field are about 400 feet away, and I could see those perfectly.
Honestly, there is probably a solid half hour of this film where you can see less than 10% of the screen. I stumbled upon a Letterboxd review by Miles that said the second half was like watching Blair Witch through a straw, which I found extremely hilarious and incredibly accurate. And look, I can see what the filmmakers were aiming for, especially as it relates to the realms of cosmic or Lovecraftian horror, a chief tenet of which is the fear of the unknown. But there's a stark difference between not knowing what something is and not being able able to see it. Optometrists could start using the Outwaters on eye exams if it weren't for all the gore and nudity, but I'm sure some in Florida will still try. While there's a significant amount of our freelance videographers screaming and sprinting or stumbling and mumbling in the dark,
who's that stumbling around in the dark?
There are moments when that proves to be quite effective, when the light catches on something truly terrible, or as we're transported to another time and place. Thankfully, portions of this prolonged purgatory also take place during the day, where the viewer can get their bearings and see what nightmares have survived the night, although you're more likely to spy seams in the subterfuge under the harsh light of day, a dawning realization of why the filmmakers chose to shroud what they could. The Outwaters was clearly crafted in a DIY indie filmmaking spirit, made for a mere $15,000, and it shows. Pull up the full cast and crew page on IMDb and you'll see Robbie Banfich's name no less than 9 times. He served as writer, director, producer, star, cinematographer, editor, sound designer, and is even credited for the film's special effects.
A man of many talents.
While it highlights the talents of a multifaceted filmmaker, it also outlines the film's outer limits. The result is a venture I respect more than I revere. I applaud any film and filmmaker with the audacity to take the audience on a relentless ride. I only wish this one was fashioned with more tact and purpose. Furthermore, at 1 hour and 50 minutes, it's very long by found footage standards, and I definitely felt its length before and after the chaos begins. Frankly, the film could stand to lose 15 minutes from each half, and would probably be all the better for it, making for a leaner and meaner film. Now, I'd like to zoom out of this review by quickly holding the Outwaters in consideration with the modern found footage subgenre, a context I feel inclined to include given the film's especially rave reception. Would I consider the Outwaters to be the second coming of found footage? No, I would not. For starters, I wouldn't put it on the same level as what I consider to be the best found footage films out there, which would include the Blair Witch Project, of course, Wreck, and personal favorites of mine, the Creep films, not to mention the remarkable new wave of found footage washing up from Asian shores, Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, The Medium, and Incantation, to highlight just 3. More specifically, as a metaphysical descent into madness, it doesn't stand alone when compared to the likes of As Above, So Below, The Borderlands, and most recently, the accurately titled, albeit far more comical to Hell and Back segment from VHS 99. Time will ultimately tell whether the Outwaters deserves placement in the Found Footage Hall of Fame, but one thing is for sure, the film has entered the conversation in a big way, and I look forward to the ongoing discourse as more people experience the film for themselves. I give the Outwaters 3 memory cards out of 5. Despite my lukewarm take, I would still encourage any other horror hounds, especially my fellow found footage freaks, to seek this one out for themselves ASAP. Also, it looks like Robbie Banfich has 4 upcoming projects, 2 completed short films, filed VL624 and Card 0, which serve as an experimental extension and prequel to the Outwaters respectively. I'm curious as to when and how we might be able to see these. Seems like an ideal supplement for the film's physical release. Banfich also has 2 additional features in the can, currently in post-production, Exvalis and Tensman Road, the latter of which is reportedly a found footage film following a young man's search for his sister's body after her tragic disappearance. The Outwaters is more than enough to ensure I'll be keeping tabs on Banfich's career, and it looks like we won't have to wait long for what's next. The Outwaters is currently playing in select theaters before it heads to Screenbox at a later date. It currently has a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 42% audience score. Over on Letterboxd, the film has a 3.0 rating. Have you seen The Outwaters? If so, what did you think of the film? What was your viewing experience like, and how does it compare with your Found Footage Hall of Fame? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you down there in the dark. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Cineflect for video essays, film lists, and more.
I got this!
And click that bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. For Cineflect, I'm JS Lewis. Until next time, watch something good.